Professional baseball has been being played since 1876, and only one team in that entire history has accomplished this feat. Down 0-3 to their hated rivals, the New York Yankees, this team battled back and accomplished what many thought was impossible and broke an 86-year curse. That team was the 2004 Boston Red Sox. Let's talk about it. If you're around my age or younger, it's hard to imagine the city of Boston as being cursed when it comes to sports. I mean, hell, in this century alone, they've won 13 titles. All I've ever known in my time watching sports is them rightfully being able to call themselves Title Town. Hell, it's only been 5 years since Brady left and the Patriots are already seemingly turning it around with Mike Vrabel and Drake May. Lucky bastards. I've been watching a rebuild since 1999. But before I spiral into self-loathing, let's get back on topic. A lot of people say the best rivalry in sports is Red Sox-Yankees. And up until the 2000s, the Yankees were rightfully calling themselves the big brother of that rivalry, winning World Series in '96.
Hayes waits. The Yankees are champions of baseball.
'98.
Brocious, fittingly with a throw. The Yankees have done it again.
'99.
Curtis makes the catch. Ball game over. World Series over. Yankees win.
And 2000.
Back is Brian Williams, a three-peat. The New York Yankees, for the third time in a row, fourth time in 5 years, and 26th time in franchise history, they are the world champions.
But in 2001, the Red Sox got new owners and were ready to change that narrative. And in the first big move, hired Theo Epstein as their general manager in 2002. This news shocked the sports world because Theo Epstein was only 28.
People keep calling me a wonderkind. I don't even know what that means.
Becoming the youngest general manager at the time in baseball history. I mean, hell, even today, hiring a 28-year-old general manager sounds pretty crazy. Most 28-year-olds are just starting to figure out what they're going to do with their adult life. And this dude is now in charge of one of the biggest franchises in MLB. But thankfully for Boston, he wasn't your average 28-year-old, had a plan and started executing it immediately. Signing Keith Foulke, David Ortiz, and trading for Curt Schilling in the first 2 years of getting the job. Now, if you're hearing the story for the first time, remember those names. They're going to come up later on, which I now realize I spoiled in the first 20 seconds of this video. So if you're watching this for the first time not knowing what happened to the 2004 Boston Red Sox, I apologize, but stick around. It's still a fun story. And then comment down below like, wow, what an amazing story. We'll pretend like it's the Sixth Sense that we're all watching for the first time. Side note, my daughter actually just watched the Sixth Sense for the first time with like no frame of reference or what it was about. And so like no spoilers or anything. She came downstairs and her mind was just blown. She just like walked in and was like, oh my God, what? Oh my God. Such a cool thing to experience as a parent. Sorry, I'm rambling again. Let's get back to the story. Well, since we're already off topic, let's take it way back to the beginning of everything, the start of the rivalry and the curse. In the beginning, when the Red Sox came into the league, they were the best and most dominant team of their era, winning 5 of the first 15 World Series. The first one was in 1903, and then came the dynasty of the 19 teens. During that era, they won one in 1912, 1915, 1916, and 1918. Those last 3 with the most famous baseball player of all time, Babe Ruth.
The great Bambino!
But at the end of the 1919 season, Babe Ruth was traded to the New York Yankees for $100,000, thus spawning a curse and a rivalry. Babe Ruth went on to play for 15 years for the Yankees, winning 4 titles with them. And the Red Sox went straight to the gutter. And when I say straight to the gutter, I actually mean it. They didn't have a season above 500 for the next 16 years. They went from being the most successful team in the MLB at the time, winning 4 titles in a 6-year span, to 16 straight years of below 500 play. Maybe you shouldn't have traded what most people call the best player of all time. And to add salt to the wound, the Red Sox went into a nosedive, and then the Yankees became the most dominant team in baseball history. In the 84-year span we're talking about here, from trade to 2004 season, the Yankees played in 39 World Series, winning 26 of them. Twice as many as any other team in the MLB. Now that is a sliding doors moment. Okay, back to the modern day. Well, not modern day as like today, but modern day in like 2003. The first season for Theo Epstein as the general manager of the Red Sox. That year, the team led Major League Baseball in almost every offensive statistical category, including runs scored with 961, a batting average of 2.89, on-base percentage of 360, and what might be most impressive, a team slugging percentage of .491, which set a new league record previously held by the 1927 Yankees. They also had 649 extra base hits, the most ever by a team in a single season. But even with all those amazing statistics, they still finished second in the league behind, you guessed it, the New York freaking Yankees. That year, their first round matchup was against the Oakland Athletics, and they dropped the first 2 games of the series.
Tejada, and Oakland has gone ahead 2-0.
But rebounded in the next 2 at home and had dramatic late inning wins.
Bill Miller in shallow left. He's got it, and the Red Sox have tied the series.
The series went back to Oakland, and they closed it out in Game 5, setting up a much-anticipated ALCS against their bitter rival, the New York Yankees.
Strike 3 called, and the Boston Red Sox have come from behind, trailing 2-0, winning 3 in a row, and they will meet the Yankees on Wednesday night in the American League Championship Series.
They split the first 2 games in New York, and then the real drama unfolded in Game 3 back in Boston. It was a highly anticipated matchup, with Pedro Martinez taking the mound for the Red Sox and ex-Red Sox pitcher Roger Clemens taking the mound for the Yankees. Kareem Garcia stepped up to bat in the 4th and was drilled in the back by a Martinez fastball. Tensions got high immediately because the last time Martinez pitched against the Yankees, he also hit 2 batters. In the next inning, Clemens threw a high fastball at Manny Ramirez, which he took exception to, charged the mound, and both benches cleared. During which 72-year-old bench coach Don Zimmer charged Martinez. Martinez sidestepped him, grabbed him by the head, and threw him to the ground. I don't know what that old man was doing charging him, but also, maybe don't grab an old man by the head and throw him to the ground. Either way, after a 13-minute delay and everybody getting back to the dugout, Martinez went back to the box and then was struck out by Clemens. The Yankees went on to win that game and take a 2-1 series lead. The next 2 games went back and forth, and the series was stretched to Game 7, which some people say are the best 2 words in sports. Game 7. Game 7, they put Pedro Martinez back on the mound, and the Red Sox got out to an early 4-0 lead. But by the 6th inning, Martinez was seemingly out of gas. But manager Grady Little decided to keep him in the game for 2 more innings, and the Yankees tied it up at 5-5, scoring 3 runs off of Martinez in the 8th. The game ended up going to extra innings, and in the 11th, Aaron Boone stepped up and hit a walk-off home run, sending the Yankees to the World Series for the 5th time in 6 years. Further cementing the curse of the Bambino. The call to leave Pedro in for those extra innings didn't just cost the Sox their game, it also cost manager Grady Little his job, as the Red Sox declined to renew his contract and he was out as manager. With Little out, the team brought in former Phillies manager Terry Francona to take over as skipper. Skipper's a funny thing to call a baseball manager, but I like it. And seeing as pitching was one of those factors that led to their fall to the Yankees, that offseason Theo made some moves, bringing in ace Curt Schilling and closer Keith Foulke. Going into that 2004 season, the excitement, enthusiasm, and anticipation for the year were through the roof, but also the looming thought of what if we blow this again sat heavy on the minds of all the fans. They thought, I know we made a bunch of good moves, but is this enough to break the curse and finally get there? They started super hot and actually ended the first month of the season 15-6 and stood on top of the AL. But the next few months they fell flat. And in May, June, and July, they went 41-40, bringing their overall record to 55-44. And on July 31st, Theo shocked the entire baseball world by trading away Nomar Garciaparra to the Cubs. Side note, I often get words stuck in my head that just repeat internally for hours and hours at a time. And usually they're like obscure sports names. Nomar Garciaparra is one of those. So doing the research and then filming this, just know that in my head, while I'm trying to film, I'm just going, Nomar Garciaparra, Nomar Garciaparra, Nomar Garciaparra. Undiagnosed, but we're pretty sure. Okay, that's 3 tangents already in this episode. I'm sorry. I promise I will try to lock it in and get better.
You better lock it up. You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Turns out that trade was actually the shot on the ass that team needed. And in August, they ended up going 21-7 and ended the year 96-64 and were headed back to the playoffs. They were matched up against the Anaheim Angels in the ALDS, and in the first game blew them out 9-3. But in that game, pitcher Curt Schilling tore the tendon sheath on one of the ligaments in his ankle. I don't know what it means either, which will lead to some drama later. Remember that? It's called foreshadowing. Game 2 at Pedro Martinez matched up against Bartolo Colon.
Our starting pitcher, of course, Bartolo Colon.
The game was tied 3-3 headed into the 7th, but the Red Sox would rally and end up winning 8-3, giving them a 2-0 series lead. They headed back to Boston for Game 3, and with a chance to sweep in front of their home crowd, they got out to an early 6-1 lead. But the Angels rallied in the 7th, and their first score actually came off of a walked-in batter. The bases were loaded, and they walked a guy. Then, Vladimir Guerrero stepped up and hit a grand slam, tying the game up at 6-6.
He hits this ball a long way to right. Back it goes. Back. Gone. Tied up.
The 8th and 9th inning went scoreless, so we were headed to extra innings. And in the 10th, David Ortiz stepped up and sent one over the Green Monster, scoring a 2-run homer to send them back to the ALCS, setting up one of the most anticipated rematches.
The Red Sox win, and they're moving on up.
It was once again Yankees versus Red Sox for the right to play in the World Series. The amount of excitement to be back and the nervousness of what if this happens to us again must have been crazy during that time in Boston. You want to get revenge and beat your rival, but what if it happens again for the second year in a row? I can't imagine that. Literally, I can't imagine that. My biggest rivals are the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens, and they kick the shit out of us every year. But I'll always have 2021 and that win over the Steelers in the playoffs.
Oh, I miss Baker Mayfield so much.
Game 1 was set to be a pitching duel, both teams sending out their aces, Schilling versus Messina. But if you remember, the last time Kurt pitched, he suffered an injury and actually had a pretty terrible game. He only pitched 3 innings and gave up 6 home runs, while on the other side of the field, Messina went 6 scoreless, and they headed into the 7th down 8-0. But they rallied in the 7th, scoring 5, and then again in the 8th, scoring 2, bringing the game to 8-7 headed into the 9th. But then the Yankees called in closer Mariano Rivera to do what Mariano Rivera does: close games, which is what he did, and they lost 7-10. Game 2 actually turned into the pitching duel that we thought Game 1 was going to be. Pedro Martinez went 6 innings, striking out 7 batters, and on the other side, Joe Lieber threw 7 scoreless innings. The Yankees went on to win that game 3-1 and took a 2-series lead. After the game, Johnny Damon was asked if Game 3 was a must-win, and he responded, "Yeah, it definitely is. The Yankees don't lose 4 games in a row." Or do they? Foreshadowing. Game 3 could not have gone any different than Game 2, with runs scored all over the place. The first 2 innings went back and forth. In the first, the Yankees scored 3, but then the Red Sox answered in the second and scored 4. Then in the third, the Yankees scored 3, and the Red Sox answered with 2, leading to a 6-6 tie at the end of the third. But then the Yankees took over and scored 5 in the fourth and 2 in the fifth, bringing the total to 13-6. The Yankees dominated that game, winning at 19-8, and all hope was seemingly lost for Boston. But this wouldn't be a good story worth telling if all that hope was lost, right? Game 4 was back in Fenway, and the tension could not be any higher for that fan base. Last year, they took him to 7 games and lost on an extra inning walk-off. You can't get any closer than that. And then they seemingly got better, but now are on the brink of getting swept. But thankfully, that was not the feeling inside the clubhouse with the players. Kevin Miller set the tone that game and almost predicted the future with his pregame mantra that he kept repeating over and over: "Don't let us win tonight."
Don't let us win this game tonight. Then they get Petey, and then they get Shield Game 6. In Game 7, anything happens.
And for the first time all series, the Yankees didn't actually score in the first inning, but neither did the Red Sox, so the game was scoreless heading into the third inning. Then, with Derek Jeter on first, Alex Rodriguez hit a 2-run home run, sending it over the Green Monster and out of the park. What's funny is a fan found that ball and threw it back over the fence onto the field. So Johnny Damon picked it up and tossed it back over the fence, only for it to come back onto the field a second time. The Red Sox were down 2-0 headed into the 5th, with only 1 hit coming in the second inning. But Orlando Hernandez had got himself into a little bit of a jam, walking 2 of the first 3 batters that inning, eventually letting in 3 runs total, giving the Red Sox only their second lead of the entire series. So now they're up 3-2. But that lead was short-lived because in the next inning, the Yankees scored twice, and now the score was 4-3. The next 2 innings were scoreless, so we're headed to the 9th down 1, and the Yankees bring out what most people call the greatest closer of all time, Mariano Rivera, who at the time was a perfect 6 of 6 in saves in the postseason against the Red Sox. It's not seeming too promising. But again, if it ended here, would this be worth making a video about? Well, I guess if you're a Yankees fan, this totally would be worth making a video about. But anyway, Kevin Miller was first up to bat in the 9th, and was walked in 5 pitches. Dave Roberts then came in to pinch run for him, and everyone and their mom knew exactly what he was in there to do: steal second. Before he even threw a single pitch to the next batter, Mariano checked him 3 times at first base. But he probably should have done it a 4th time, because on the next pitch, Roberts did steal second, putting him in scoring position. Bill Mueller then hit a single right up the middle, straight past Riviera, into center field, and the speedster Dave Roberts made it home. The game's now tied 4-4, and we're headed to extra innings. In the bottom of the 12th, Manny Ramirez hits a single into left field, and then David Ortiz stepped up to the plate and does what Big Papi does.
Ortiz into deep right field. Back is Sheffield. We'll see you later tonight.
The Red Sox win, stave off the sweep, and force a Game 5. Game 5 was the very next day, which some Red Sox players said was actually to their advantage, trying to let the momentum of the game before get into the game now. Pedro Martinez took the mound for Boston, and Mike Mussina was up for New York. The Red Sox got out to an early lead, putting up 2 in the first, and the Yankees answered with 1 in the second. And then that 2-1 score would hold all the way until the 6th inning. There, Pedro would give up 2 singles and then hit Miguel Cairo, leaving the bases loaded for Derek Jeter. And on Pedro's 100th pitch, he hit a double down the right field line, clearing the bases to bring the score of the game to 4-3. Then the game enters full deja vu mode. Miller is walked, and then Dave Roberts comes in to be his pitch runner. And then the Yankees bring in Mariano Rivera to do what he does and close out this game. But then Jason Varitek hits a sac fly, and Roberts scores easily, tying the game and sending it to extra innings. And when I say extra innings, I mean extra innings. We're going all the way to the 14th to tell the end of this story. Johnny Damon walked. Manny Ramirez walked, bringing up David Ortiz with 2 outs and 2 on. And on the 10th pitch of that at-bat, Big Papi gets a clutch hit, sending one to center, and Damon scores, winning the game for the Red Sox.
Ortiz fights it off center field. Damon running to the plate, and he can keep on running to New York. Game 6 tomorrow night.
They had forced a Game 6, and you could feel the belief setting in and the momentum starting to change. Now, almost every iconic player game in sports gets the moniker the whatever. The Miracle on Ice, the Catch, the Drive, the Music City Miracle. This is the Bloody Sock Game. Like I mentioned before, in the previous series, Curt Schilling tore the sheath around his tendon in his ankle, which was then temporarily repaired by suturing that tendon to his skin, which sounds insane. And I tried to read up on what that means and how it works to get a better understanding and explain to you guys the technicality of it all. But unfortunately, it was a ton of medical terms that I didn't understand. Basically, they Frankensteined his ankle so he could get out there and pitch. But before his first pitch, the announcers noticed a blood stain on the white part of his sock, turning it red, making it a red sock. The first 3 innings, both teams go scoreless, and in the 4th, Boston puts up the first run. Then with runners on first and second, Bellhorn sent a shot into left field. The ball then bounced off of a fan's chest and back into the field of play. At first, the umpires ruled it a double, and Terry Francona wasn't having any of that. He ran onto the field to argue, and the crew huddled up and then eventually ended up overturning it, calling it a home run, not interference, bringing the score to 4-0. Schilling ended up pitching 7 innings, giving up a single home run to Bernie Williams. Bronson Arroyo replaced Schilling in the 8th, and with a runner on second, Derek Jeter sends one to left field, and that runner scores. The place goes freaking crazy. So now Derek Jeter's on first base, and A-Rod steps up to bat and hits a little dribbler back to Arroyo, where he picks it up and they both sprint to first base. Now, while they're running, Rodriguez slaps the ball out of Brunson's hand, allowing time for Derek Jeter to score, which I actually had no idea you were allowed to do, and thought, man, if that's legal, why doesn't everyone just do that? Well, that's because it's not legal. The call was overturned, Alex Rodriguez was called out, and Derek Jeter is sent back to first base. And Yankees fans were pissed. That being the second call that was overturned in favor of Boston, they just started throwing shit on the field.
As this fan base for the Yankees is throwing baseballs onto the field, this umpiring crew, this place is dangerous now. They're going to have to call the players off the field.
Closer Keith Falk came in to start the 9th inning and went walk, out, walk. Tony Clark enters the batter's box. Runners on first and second. 2 outs, and every butthole in the stadium firmly clinched. And on a 3-2 count, he strikes out swinging. The Red Sox have won. And for the first time in baseball history, a team being down 0-3 forces a Game 7. You could just feel the momentum has completely swung from one side to the other. Just 3 days before, the Yankees were set to sweep and go back to the World Series. Now they're headed home for a Game 7 with all the pressure in the world and their backs up against the wall. And then they completely folded. Boston jumps out to an early lead in Game 7, scoring 2 in the first and 4 in the second, and then never looked back. Derek Lowe pitched that game with only 2 days rest, went 6 full innings, and only allowed 1 base hit. The game ended 10-3, and the impossible had just been done. No team in the history of baseball had ever come back to win a series down 0-3, and the cursed Red Sox just did it. I will note, though, that there are 4 teams in NHL history that have made that comeback, but NHL players are a totally different breed, so that doesn't actually surprise me. And just for added trivia knowledge, no one in the NBA has ever done it either. Thousands of Boston fans gathered around the dugout and the team celebrated with them, throwing out equipment and spraying them down with champagne. They were headed to the World Series with all the momentum in the world and were ready to break the curse. They were matched up against the St. Louis Cardinals, who actually had the best record in baseball that year. And if matching up against the Yankees the series before wasn't enough history and drama for you, since they traded away Babe Ruth, the Red Sox had only made it to the World Series 4 times, and in 2 of those matchups, they lost to the Cardinals. But it didn't matter to this team. They had all the confidence in the world, and if you believe in that sort of thing, all of the momentum. They picked up right where they left off, and in the first inning they scored 4 runs, and then ultimately won that game 11-9. Then went on to just dominate the rest of the series, winning 6-2 in Game 2, 4-1 in Game 3, and then shutting them out 3-0 to end the series in Game 4, sweeping the Cardinals, and once and for all ending the curse of the Bambino. And for the first time in 86 years, the Boston Red Sox are World Series champions. The Red Sox would go on to win 1 more title in 2007, and then general manager Theo Epstein would go on to break 1 more curse with 1 more team. But that's another story for another video. Thanks again for tuning in and watching. Like, subscribe, and comment down below what player, event, or team you want to see me cover next. And as always, get out there and high five some strangers. Kind of a tongue twister. Former Phillies. I'll get it eventually.